Hi, I'm Kay Lowry, and I am super pumped today to have Christina Whitlock as my guest. Do you want to take your music teaching up a notch? You are in the right place. My guest on today's show can help you, and you're going to feel pretty good about it as you go along. So, we are so excited for Christina to be on our channel today. Here's a brief introduction about her. She has so many cool things. I want to read this to make sure I don't forget. Christina Whitlock operates a vibrant independent music studio in Muncie, Indiana. I've never been.
That's right. Ooh, you'll have to come visit.
I will. Christina earned a Bachelor of Music in Piano Performance from Kent State in 2004, summa cum laude, and has a Master's of Music in Piano Performance and Pedagogy from Ball State 2006. We're going to put a bunch more about Christina in the description of this video. So head on to the description if you want to know some goodies and some more stuff about her. We're going to chat a little bit. Hang with us because we've got some surprises for you at the end about some resources you are gonna love, love, love. Christina and I got acquainted through her podcast, which is fabulous. Beyond Measure podcast. Write that down, or it will be in our description. And then on Facebook and Instagram, she is a super encourager of teachers. So let's dive in. Christina, you are a busy, busy teacher. You have a pretty large piano studio. Like how many right now?
44 right now.
Whoa, that's pretty big.
Big
And
for some, small for others.
no kidding. You recently presented at our National MTNA conference. And on top of that, I know you have a side business where you have a Patreon, you have consultations, you have your own course, a podcast, all the things. I think you have everything. And so, can you give us a sneak peek? Like, what is your typical day like?
I don't know what a typical day even means, Kay. No, I'm just kidding. We're all busy. That is one thing that studio teachers have so in common, right? None of us do just one thing. And even if you did, you probably did a whole bunch of it. So, um, my days vary pretty significantly depending on the days of the week right now. So I'm kind of in this season of overhauling my life and my schedule. And this year has been kind of a journey in that regard. So I do have a young family, and I got super burnout last year just in the amount of hours of actual teaching time that I was putting in. And so I have reduced that greatly. I put in 4 digitals behind me, as you can tell. So I made a jump into group teaching this last fall. Yay! That's going really well. I still do some private instruction as well. But depending on the day, I teach early in the morning. I do have a pretty large contingency of homeschoolers and adult retired students who come to see me during the day. But then I kind of squirrel away larger pockets of time a few days a week just so I can work on some creative projects. So those are things like the podcast that you so kindly mentioned, and other teacher resource development. I recently, as of as of January, I've left my collegiate teaching position. I was teaching pedagogy courses and piano literature at Taylor University, and I left not because I didn't love what I was doing, but just because I have so many projects rolling around up here, and time, is just irreplaceable. So I just had to clear some space to work on some things. So I've got all kinds of hopeful projects that one of these days will see the light of day. But that's that.
That's so cool. I did want to kind of go sideways on something you mentioned. You converted part of your private lessons to group lessons.
Hmm.
Were these existing students?
Hmm. Yeah, they were absolutely existing students. I always remind people like I was very fortunate in this shift to group because I didn't have to sell anyone on me or on piano or they were all students who loved being here and loved me and I really do have truly the best group of parents and families that I have you know anyway, it's really really a blessing. And so they knew that I was tapped out and something needed to give. And so I did a pretty substantial rate increase, especially on the private lesson end. And then I basically let people choose for the most part. I helped steer some students in the right direction. I would say by and large, most of my studio families said, put us wherever you want us and we'll make it work. So I know that is a a circumstance not granted to everyone. So I appreciate that and their flexibility, and it's been really great. It really has been solid. So in the evenings I've now whittled myself down to I teach 2 private lessons a night and then 1 group class each night. So it's basically 2 hours an evening, which is down from like 4. So that's really afforded our family a lot more time.
That's fabulous,
Yeah.
and it takes a lot of courage to make changes like that. So if you
Hmm.
are teaching and you're listening, take courage. You can make these changes. And if
Yeah.
you're listening and you are a student, it is comforting to know that private lessons and group lessons both have their merits. And it's
Yeah.
really, I have done both, and I think they're fabulous. So good
Yeah.
for you. That's so cool.
I I will say, I've been pretty excited. I'm sorry, my dog is climbing on my lap here. Say hi, Wilson. Okay. So I did. We just got through our first like festival season of the year, and I was really curious how these group kiddos were gonna, hold up, and they did really well. So there have just been a lot of great, pleasant surprises along the way. So yeah,
It's just great teaching,
yeah,
because that's fabulous. That's cool. So
thanks.
you've got your podcast. That's where I think I met you.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, but you always call yourself the anytime piano teacher friend. Now, I feel it. I feel the vibe through the podcast. But why did you pick that?
Well, I think the genesis of the podcast was a long time in the making. I was hosting conversations with an invisible audience up in my head for years, um, and I couldn't quite find the angle that I felt was unique enough or really fit my contribution, what I wanted to give. And it really just kind of all hit me all of a sudden during the pandemic when so many of us, made some pretty strong pivots. And really, truly, what the idea behind the podcast is the fact that, like, when I go to teacher conferences or when I grab a coffee with a teacher friend of mine, like, there's just an energy that is irreplaceable. Like, there's just something about being with other music teachers because even though we're all a very eclectic bunch, like there is something underlying that we all have in common. And I happen to think it's pretty amazing. And so with that, I just thought, like, how can I bottle this, and try to give that camaraderie to people on their own schedule? Because of course, like those coffee dates I have with my music teacher friends happen like twice a year because we can't get our schedules together like at all. And so that was the whole point, was that, can I try to be a friend to the music teacher profession, which I feel like the profession has been very good to me, and I just wanted to give back in that way. And of course, the incredible bonus is that I have made so many great friends like you through the podcast. So I'm trying to be a friend to people. And then, of course, I've just ended up like, multiplying my friend ranks. And so it's worked out really well for me too.
You you may have mentioned this on your podcast, but you've got people from all over.
Sure.
Do you
Yeah.
have a sense of who listens to your podcast?
Yeah, so, podcast metrics are a little dicey. There's not a really great way to measure them, but everybody tries. But yeah, we're all over the place. So I have, yeah, I have listeners. I have a really strong contingency in Canada, and also over in England and Ireland and Australia, and yeah, we're all over the place. New Zealand's pretty big actually in my numbers. So yeah, hey everybody.
I'm in Oklahoma, so
You're in Oklahoma.
it's not, you may not know this, but I have a guitar teaching friend that listens to you. So it's not just piano teachers that.
Well, that's awesome. That was my hope because honestly, I feel like the piano teacher world has done a really great job of banding together. We have these great Facebook groups and things that, we all kind of get to know each other in. And I know those groups exist in other instrument worlds as well, but I just can't help but feel like we've really got the community aspect working. So I'm hoping to extend that to other instruments as well.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Well, you've been teaching piano almost 28 years.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how you got started? And what were you like when you were a piano student?
Well, oh boy, that's a whole thing, isn't it? Well, the start of my teaching career was kind of funny. So this Kawai piano that I'm sitting at right now was a surprise gift to me on my 14th birthday. My dad went out to buy a new washing machine and got a little sidetracked at the music store and came home and told my mom that he bought me this piano. It was great, great day. Um, and as she kind of panicked a little bit for probably many reasons, but her main thing was like, she hasn't, she needs to play it. This is a big investment. She should actually like the instrument she's playing. Now, I also like just want to go back in time and pat my mom on the head because like I was not going to like anything at age 14. Like I didn't have any kind of discriminating ideas about a piano. But I'll tell you, I was again very fortunate that this is a fantastic instrument that I have just loved playing and teaching on. But anyway, as I went to the store to try it out, the owner of the store was hearing me play, and he said, "Oh, I really need a piano teacher. Will you please come teach lessons for me?" And that's essentially how I got into teaching. It was really rocky. I mean, I was super committed to it, but I didn't know what I was doing at all, of course. I don't feel too guilty because people were paying, I think, like $5 or $6 for a lesson. So I think I made like $3 a lesson at that point. But I have kept a full studio since age of 14. So, I grew up in a super small town and the only other teacher around was my teacher and she was full. So there came me.
That's great. And you've been
Yeah.
able to give music to people who wouldn't normally get to do it.
Yeah.
And that's why we want to spread the word through
Yeah.
all of the things that we can online because there's more and more people who
Yeah.
want to get connected with teachers. So that's,
And I think it's so important to encourage new teachers. We all are very strong in our opinions about things, I know. But I hold a really solid belief that we all have something to offer as teachers, even in those early stages that I was in. And, I know I'm always grateful the internet wasn't around when I was doing that. I mean, it was barely around. Because like if I would have jumped into one of these groups and said I was a 14-year-old piano teacher, I'm sure like, people would have pounced on me and said, "What are you doing?" But thank goodness, because again, I was the only option for a lot of those students. And I have some high school teachers that I've trained and that teach, small studios here around town, and they do a fabulous job. And so I'm all about just empowering the music teachers and we all have something to offer. So,
that's super cool. I love
yeah.
that. I love that vibe from you. That's awesome. Let's talk about your career. Very successful, but as you mentioned, you have a young family. How
Yeah.
do you balance that out? And has it ever been especially hard?
It's hard every day. It's every day. I come from a sort of workaholic kind of family. My mom, especially, she was a director of nursing, and I mean, she worked probably 90 hours a week her entire career. You know, every single family holiday meal, whatever, it was always interrupted by phone calls. I mean, this is how we lived our lives. And while, it sounds kind of sad, it also really made me appreciate her for the leader that she was and the wisdom that she carried. And my dad owned his own business, so he wasn't necessarily as committed to his work as she was, but he also had to do it. And so I just grew up with that. And I too, I mean, I care deeply about this work, just like you do. And we all know it can become all consuming, especially when you have other projects you want to get into the world. But this is a very particular season. My girls are 6 and 12, and they need their mom. and and I want to just soak them up as much as I can, because anyone who's had young children know they just keep growing up on you, and no matter how much you try to soak it up and enjoy it, they just keep growing. It doesn't, either way. You can't stop it. So I think that was a huge contributor to this big life reevaluation I did last year. My oldest started running cross country, and I was missing, a handful of meets so I could stay home and teach. And that was our agreement going into it. She knew it, I knew it. But like those, like when she would be running a meet and I'd be home teaching, like it just killed me inside. I was like, ugh, this is terrible. So I was like, something's got to give. And that's why I moved all these pianos into my house.
Yes. And
So,
the great thing about having your own business is you can morph.
yeah,
And then as your kids get older, you can do something even different if you
yeah,
want.
yeah.
I myself have just gone through a big change, moving from Texas to Oklahoma and
I
going
know.
completely online. But I will tell a small story of encouragement to you and everyone. I never wanted to be a piano teacher. So, and I started at 16 teaching piano and taught through college, but I wanted to be a public school teacher, which I was. I wanted to teach public school music. I was in a school of 900 students, and I was the only music teacher,
Wow.
and I loved it, loved it. And then our first son was born, and he was special needs. And I
Hmm.
remember just that struggle of, gosh, I want to be home and I don't want to
Yeah,
be here. It was exhausting to be a public school teacher all day long. And I
yeah,
thought, what am I going to do? And I remember one of the teachers at my school said, okay, all these 900 kids are going to have many teachers in their life, but your son has one mom.
yeah,
And I've always taken that to heart and thought,
yeah,
how can I make the balance of doing what I want to contribute and love with my family? And it's not easy. So
yeah.
congratulations to you for making that balance. It is really important. It's important to all of
It's
us, I think.
Of course. And I mean, it's regardless of whether or not you have children. It's just, I laugh because I think sometimes those of us in this work feel, stuck or limited in these schedules, but we're the ones who are building them. Like, we're the ones in charge. It's a huge gift of what we do. But sometimes we get caught in these narratives of, oh, I need more, more, more. And we really don't. Like, I think independent teachers in general really need to consider what is enough for them, because it's just way too tempting to keep taking on one more student, one more student, one more student. And I don't know. I think it's really dicey. And so, regardless of your position in life, I do think we all have to constantly consider, like, okay, we're given this one life, right? And this one season, and nothing else is guaranteed. So let's do what we need to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well said. Well said. What's your favorite thing happening in your studio right now?
Oh my goodness, my favorite thing is that it's almost recital time. Yay! I think recitals are such a great opportunity because they just really amp up like all the warm fuzzy feelings, right? So I only do one really large studio recital a year. So we do a big spring recital here at the end of April. And it's just, I don't know. I think I found over the years when I started pulling back on other studio performances that it makes this one like a really big deal. And we'll do smaller casual things throughout the year and in smaller groups. But this is the time we all come together and everyone just brings I tell them it's like musical show and tell. They get to really choose whatever they want to play from this year. I'll guide them into what I hope they choose, of course, but in the end, they get to choose. And it's just such a great day. Like, I love just sitting back and seeing them all do their thing. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm so curious about your Studio Foundations course.
Oh,
I've heard a
yeah.
little bit about it.
Mhm.
Who is it for, and who should be thinking about it? And I ask that because sometimes I know when I've taken a course, it's kind of in the back of my mind for a few minutes. Well, maybe a while
Yeah.
because I've got to percolate on it. But who is this for?
So, the Studio Foundations course is my latest project that I released in January, and it's based around these 14 foundational principles that I have found have kept me happy and effective in the profession. And so, it's modeled after the first probably like 2 to 3 classes that I teach or used to teach my pedagogy courses in at university level. And I would open every semester with this whole set of principles because I feel like they influence everything else that we do. And so, for the most part, they're pretty broad. So, the Studio Foundations course was really designed for any independent studio teacher of any instrument. It's not piano specific. It does not talk about like the business end of things. It's not anything in that regard. I like to handle those things on private consultations just because we're all so different. I haven't found a great way to apply that to the masses just yet. But the core principles vary from things like that first thing that I was talking about today about how we all have something to offer the profession. And I like to point out that that is something that we can use to avoid the pit of judging other teachers, but also to feel empowered ourselves. Because when I work with especially new teachers, I know there's that constant narrative of, ooh, am I qualified to do this? Do I have what it takes to do this? I mean, I think we all question that sometimes on the day to day anyway. And so we begin by empowering ourselves in that regard. We walk through a lot of different things like experiencing concepts before you label them. That's my spin on Francis Clark's sound before symbol, but I like experience before label. We walk through all kinds of things, and mostly in that relationship with the student and how we can be our most effective selves that way. So it's a series of 17 video lessons, and it comes with a workbook that is very applicable. It turns all the lessons right back to you. So I have, in my initial round of students that took it, or I don't like to call them students, they're teachers, but in that initial group, I had some newer teachers, and my high school piano teacher took it with me, believe it or not. It was very humbling, very full circle, and she loved it and insists that it was very beneficial. I thought that was adorable. And so there's just a wide variety. But I would just say, I think sometimes we all get that little inkling of like, oh, I wish I could just take some time and focus on my teaching a little bit or study up a little bit more. And because I do think we all have something to learn from each other, I think that that has been the idea, is that I can build it in a way that allows us to take my perspectives, but then apply them to whatever individual is consuming that information. So,
That's super cool, Christina, because
yeah.
I only got the chance to take one pedagogy course, and
Mm-hmm.
it was,
Mm-hmm.
looking back, it was way back in the day. So, things have
Yeah.
changed a lot. And many teachers start without that opportunity.
Of course. I sure did.
People just
Mhm.
are starting in our profession and
Yeah.
they don't have a music degree, which is fine, but they need
Mhm.
a little bit of guidance. And you mentioned that there are Facebook groups for teachers, and I often see all of these kind of panicky questions about
Yes.
this little thing or that little thing. And I think some of these questions could be resolved if they took a step back and
Mhm.
worked on their own selves first and
Yeah.
their foundation, before they get to some kind of issue that, they may panic on. So
Absolutely.
anyway, but that's just my 2 cents worth. I think it can be super valuable. Okay, so
Well, I think, oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think that one of the traps we fall into is, especially in the online world, you see how these other teachers who you respect and admire are doing things. And so then you just start to assume, oh, I need to do it that way. And of course, that's a valuable learning experience. It's great to share and figure out who's doing what. But at the end of the day, like we have to decide what teacher we are. And there's room for all of us, and to do something just because it's the way so and so told me to do it, I don't find that good rationale. So I just that's why I created the course. It's exactly what I would have wanted when I was 14 and trying to take on this new responsibility. So anyway, I appreciate your giving me the chance to talk about it, and I made a discount code for anyone who watches this video.
yay,
So
deal.
I that's fine. We'll put it in the show notes for this video, but it's Ms. K20, and it'll save you $20 off the price of the course. So there you go.
Like MSKAY 20.
That's it.
I feel so honored because on
Oh,
Instagram I'm K Piano, everyone. So Miss MSKAY 20,
mhm.
and you get a discount. Thank you.
Yeah.
That is so kind. Appreciate that. So
Anything to help.
all of the stuff about Christina will be in our description. And if you happen to be catching this on Facebook or Instagram, just go over to Beginning Piano on YouTube and you'll find it, or search Kay Lowry. And either way, you'll find me. Let's do my lightning round.
Oh boy, this is stressful for me, Kay.
Are you ready? I'm gonna
I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
I'm gonna pin Christina down on some important topics. Here we go. Coffee or tea?
Coffee all day long.
Sweet or salty?
Oh, sweet, please.
Classical or jazz?
That's a tough one. It really depends on my mood, but I will probably take classical.
Okay. Best teacher you ever had?
Oh my goodness. There are so many. This is impossible, by the way. But I'm gonna shout out the teacher I had for fourth and sixth grades. I got to have him for 2 grades, and he gave us. His name was Mr. Bennett, Jeff Bennett. Hey there. Um, and he instilled the love of creative writing in me, because we wrote creative writing stories every single week, and that was just part of our routine in both of those years. And it's something I always wish my kids did more of. And so because I think that's where my writer self really came out. So anyway, that was a little lengthy, but Mr.
That
Bennett, I'll
was
pick him.
a piano teacher. That was
He
a
was not a piano teacher. Now, yeah, I couldn't pick a favorite piano teacher. I have too many.
okay. Cool. Favorite brand of piano? I think I know what's coming.
I mean, I'd love to have a Steinway, but Kawai has served me very, very well. I've got Kawai, and then I put 4 Kawai digitals in, so I'm an all Kawai studio, and I am very happy that way.
Cool. Do you have a fun or impactful musical memory?
Oh, golly, so many things, right? I think a lot of my biggest musical memories would probably be things like playing for my choirs in high school or even middle school, or just different collaborative opportunities. I was telling some people at MTNA last week that I definitely used music as my opportunity to kind of stand out and to prove myself as, whatever, competent or special. And that's what it did for me. It made me feel like I had a place. And so anything that allowed me to get a little extra spotlight by playing the piano, I was in. And I like to remind myself of that because that's why it matters that our kids get these opportunities. Like sometimes my students will bring me a piece they're going to play with their choir, and I'm like, oh no, it's too hard for you. And everything about me just wants to pull the plug on it. But if there's a way that I can make it work, if we can tweak it down, which most times we have been very successful with that, then I'm like, no, this is their moment. Right? I loved these moments. So, anyway,
Those are great moments.
yeah, they
You
really are.
do have an upcoming project. You mentioned you have a lot in your head. Can you hint what's going on in that brain of yours, Christina?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing I mentioned writing a moment ago, and there are at least 5 books that I really want to write for studio teachers. And so I'm really determined to get one of those out, just via self-publishing, hopefully within the next year. Can I say that? And then just hold myself to it. I told you here. So I have one on adult students that I want to write. I have one, anyway, I won't give you the list, but I'm hoping you see my name in print here pretty soon.
There we go. You
Yeah.
didn't hear it here first. And I about adult students because a lot of people are really interested in
Yeah.
adults. So that's
Hmm.
to come. Oh, I'm so excited. And thank you so much for being with us today and sharing all of your expertise and your enthusiasm and encouragement. So we're going to sign off. Thanks everyone for listening. Bye, Christina.
Thanks.